Dividend's 5.5 now.
So there's better dividends than that, but still.
Yeah,
like,
but
I mean, if their principal keeps dropping, you're just going to lose on your principal, but that's a nice healthy dividend at the moment.
it was like, that just seems really... I mean, unless they cut it.
This is what nerds really do on our time off. All right. Welcome to FaBled Hunters.
I'm Yuanji.
I'm Saint.
And today we're going to open with the news.
That's right. It's another episode of Last Month Today.
Alright, so it's actually like last 2 months.
Last 2 months, because you were sick 1 month, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I think not a ton of stuff happened in January. Some stuff we'll cover.
Yeah, you were traveling and some other stuff.
Yeah.
I was traveling too. Yeah.
So let's go over the flesh and blood news first.
Yeah, we'll do it by segment this time, because we are a flesh and blood channel first and foremost, but we also want to cover multiple TCGs, so let's just dive into flesh and blood.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that happened in January was there was like a ProQuest season. For the most part, I think people had like mixed feelings about the ProQuest season, ranging from opinions that the LSS like price structure wasn't as good as ProQuest seasons in the past. I think you would get like a little like metal coin for top 32 or something.
Really?
Yeah, and
metal coin.
And people weren't too keen on receiving sleeves for top 8.
Okay.
That's just common feedback.
Sure.
As far as like the actual game went, it was pretty like ice dominant and led to a lot of people.
You don't say.
Yeah, having like mixed feelings about like where the direction of the game.
Okay.
Given that Dynasty didn't like really shake a ton of things up. I think this was most encapsulated by battle hardened leads. So even though there was a lot of doom and gloom, battle hardened leads had like really good attendance.
Okay.
177 players.
This is right after we reported from Battle Hardened, New Jersey, right?
I think so.
Okay.
And basically, 177 players, like really big battle hardens. Europe has had a history of having really good attendance for the battle hardens.
Yeah.
I think they're hungry for something more. And
real loyal players entrenched in the community.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But the top 8 dominated by Oldhim and Icelanders. I think it was like 4 of each. So shortly after that, LSS made a ban and suspended update to kind of address everything. They banned Belittle, Winter's Whale, Hypothermia, and Amulet of Ice as a way to...
The Ice Amulet, yeah.
As a way to kind of like address these things. I think the initial thought is that that the LSS was trying to kind of like severely curb these Ice Heroes and Fi being like the top 3 decks during ProQuest season.
Okay, yep. That was the intent. You could see it. It was telestrated from the bans, right?
Yeah. What actually happened, so Fi's like win percentage, there were a couple events afterwards. Calling Indianapolis was the largest event, but also Battle Hardened Bologna, which was the largest Battle Hardened that ever happened in Italy, at 160 players.
Awesome.
So at these events, it turns out Oldhim was still like really strong, taking up about like half the top 8 for each of these.
Yeah.
And then Michael Hamilton ends up winning Calling Indianapolis with Icelander.
Okay.
So a lot of people were a little grumbling. Like they didn't like really hit the Ice Heroes.
Yeah, I mean, the Winter's Whale seemed like a big hit to Oldhim.
Yeah.
And even with the Winter's Whale getting removed and him having to use Titan's Fist, correct me if I'm wrong, which is the starter hammer from Limited Tales of Aria. Like, even using the Titan's Fist, which costs the same to activate, I think, and doesn't give an ice token and is conditional.
Doesn't always attack for 4.
Yeah,
even.
Doesn't always. Yeah, exactly. Not always 4. No frostbite. Cost the same. Oldhim is still hella viable and dominating the scene. Doesn't that mean that Oldhim was overpowered this whole time then?
Yeah, it's like kind of a tricky ground, I think, to manage because Oldhim does have like a couple of counters.
Okay.
And they've always kind of been floating around like Prism.
Exactly. Or does this mean that Prism was so great at suppressing Oldhim that Winter's Whale didn't make that big of a difference?
It depends. So like, for example, I think Chain was always very like decent into Oldhim. Like if you had a good strategy.
Okay. Okay.
Bravo Star of the Show was always really good into Oldham.
Okay.
And Prism was also like really good into Oldham. So I think there's a lot of factors at play.
So it's kind of like there's usually like a rock, scissor, paper dynamic.
Yeah.
And then if you take out scissors, then paper's just going to stomp rock. And here, you know, Prism and Starvo were scissors.
Yeah. On Twitter, Brian Gottlieb, who's one of the like main developers for the game, kind of had a little bit of an update for the community.
Okay.
Where he was saying that the people who are expecting these like strong decks to just like disappear, it's a little bit unrealistic because these decks are just strong for like an abundance of reasons.
Well, hold on. On the flip side, Fi got Giga Gimped, right?
Yeah.
Which is your team's favorite hero and go-to hero.
Yeah.
So, like the belittle minnowism, like what the heck? Right?
Yeah, it turns out that belittle is one of the kind of key components to making Fi competitively viable.
And Briar too, right?
Or
for some time, wasn't it? For the resource and smoothing of the deck.
Yeah, Briar's a little bit less, I think, dependent on belittle because there's builds of Briar that weren't playing belittle. But it just ends up happening that a lot of people thought that Briar was going to kind of like rise up. Briar historically has had a pretty decent Oldham matchup.
Okay.
But it just ends up being that the Briar versus Icelander matchup is so unfavored that it just ends up. And
exactly, the third one is the strongest, the current world champion deck and the prior U.S. Nationals deck, and now the calling deck is Icelander, and you know, Hamilton's little darling got hit with an Amulet of Ice, which could be replaced by other blue pitch cards, I presume.
Yeah, Amulet of Ice ends up being like pretty strong for the matchup, but I would say that Icelander now has more flaws than when Michael Hamilton
So those three blues really made that big of a difference?
Yeah, and we can talk about calling Auckland, which is the most recent like tournament.
Heck yeah.
And some other results after that.
Sam, I forgot his last name.
Sam Sutherland.
Sutherland. Congrats, Sam.
Yeah, winning on Dash. So basically, just like overall, I think at the time a lot of people were having doubts. Brian said that if you're expecting these decks to just disappear, it's not realistic, but he had some faith that in calling Auckland or like in future events that there would be some kind of response. And we'll see if he was right or not. So the calling Auckland happened very recently at the end of February. I was there, ended up getting 15th place with Viserai.
That's still, you know, you're placing, right? You made a little bit of prize money.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of the things that people discovered is that if you like really put your nose to it and try to like work it out, that there are counters to some of the ice decks.
And it wasn't even Icelander in the finals. It was Oldham versus Dash, right?
I think it was Dash versus Lexi in the finals.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, then I was seeing the quarterfinals.
Yeah, there was
Dash versus Oldham. Sam was playing Dash against Oldham, beat Oldham, and then played Lexi, right?
Yeah, the top 8, there was 2, what was it? It was 2 Dashes, 1 Lexi, that's 3, 1 Bravo.
Bravo made it that far?
Yeah.
Wow.
4 Oldhams, I believe.
And no Icelander?
No Icelander.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So Icelander actually, one of the things that was kind of different about this tournament is that I think a lot of people brought Dash being like a pretty good hero against both of the ice heroes that are popular.
Okay.
So I think we saw that kind of play out. Lexi also has like not a bad Icelander matchup.
Really? Okay.
And so before this might not have been the case, but with the effect of the bans, you find that you have some non-traditional ways to attack these heroes now, which is also part of the reason why I brought Viserai. I thought it was pretty well positioned.
Okay.
So I think ultimately the changes that LSS made did kind of like freshen up the meta a little bit, but it needed like some time for people to figure it out.
People needed time to cook. I hear that.
Yeah.
I hear that.
Kind of backtracking a little bit in news before we finished the calling Auckland stuff. At the beginning of, or not the beginning, like the middle of February, they announced that they were making updates to the European translations for History Pack Volume 2 and the Blitz decks. So there's a little bit of rockiness. I think they were like there's two different product lines there. There's the HP History Pack 1 Blitz decks, and all which are kind of designed to be like a little bit more of an intentionally designed way for people to enter the game. Which I think it's good that they're still like iterating and trying to find like a better formula to get people involved in playing the game at kind of the level where if you bought a Blitz deck in the past, maybe the game was a little bit too simplistic. They're trying to introduce some more like complicated, powerful things into these Blitz decks. The other thing is that they updated the translations for these two sets, the HP1 Blitz decks and the HP2. And so they are still like working on a process, but they published an article on the official FaBled TCG website about how some of the directions that they took for localization are to preserve kind of the feel of Flesh and Blood. So, for example, using the word pitch, in a lot of languages they were trying to find like a translation for the word pitch, but instead they decided to like switch it to more like a transliteration, just to keep kind of the feel of like
Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, pitch being something that's like integral to Flesh and Blood.
I would say Go Again is probably just as integral to Flesh and Blood as pitch, and those two things I'd encourage them consider just to leave it in there, right?
Yeah, so they have some adjustments to their translations for these terms, as well as some more terms overall to capture more of like the actual like feel, the fantasy element of the game rather than just like a direct translation of what the English is. So I think
that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction. Last bit of kind of like not Auckland related news. They announced the pre-release for Outsiders.
Okay.
So one of the big changes that they did for pre-release, particularly with regards to pricing. So you know how we said at the beginning of this segment that a lot of people weren't too happy with the ProQuest pricing.
Yeah.
So with pre-release, what they did is now they again are awarding 2 cold foil heroes for the pre-release. I think one to the winner and then one at the store's discretion.
Okay.
And then they're also giving people cold foil tokens for the various, like there's a couple different like tokens that you can get in the game for like various hit triggers that are going to be in the cards from Outsiders.
Cool.
So you get cold foil versions of those tokens.
Yeah, I for example, you mentioned sleeves. Sleeves are pretty cool, but just as a collector, even as a player, just an enthusiast, I would rather a copper, silver, or gold cold foil token than a stack of sleeves. I don't know, maybe that might just be me, but that would be my personal preference. Now, you turn it around from a manufacturing perspective, I'd have to bet that a cold foil card is significantly cheaper than 100 sleeves and a box.
Yeah.
Right? So, dollars and cents, just some feedback.
It's a win-win.
It's a win for both sides. So, yeah.
Yeah, and so like this is a big it's an upgrade from the Uprising pre-release where I think you just get like rainbow foil like token like Helios Miter and Phoenix Flame.
Oh, the Phoenix Flame? Oof.
Yeah, so,
that's rough.
So you get, instead of getting like rainbow foil stuff, now they're returning to giving out cold foils to people who are both participating and winning these events, which I think is showing that they are listening to feedback. Maybe they had better intentions originally with like the sleeves and such, but I do think that this is kind of a step back in the right direction.
In the right direction. And they're micro-calibrating. They're looking at what the player base want.
Yeah.
And as a publisher, that's the right thing. The customer's always king, and the customer's almost always right. Sometimes the customer doesn't know what they want, but in this case, they've spoken. Hopefully the customers respond. The goers of the LGSs and the LGS owners respond favorably. I think it'll go well. Right? Yeah.
And so I wanted to finish off this Flesh and Blood segment with something that happened at Calling Auckland, which is prior to the event. Actually, the venue of the event had to be changed. So there was a cyclone, tropical storm, Gabriel, that has kind of hit New Zealand pretty hard.
Oh yeah, the change of venue. I remember that. Yeah.
And yeah, we had to change the venue. Originally, I think they were in a more convention hall type of location. That place got flooded, so we moved to this theater area instead.
Yeah, it felt historic and very cultural. Shout out to Tall Timmy for his sneak peek at the venue.
Yeah.
It was great.
So, in addition to the events that were going on, LSS made a contribution to the Hawke's Bay Disaster Relief Fund.
I saw that.
So they put together a 10,000 New Zealand dollar contribution on their end, but also we're selling some playmats at the event in order to generate funds.
Yep.
So I believe saying you have a couple of these playmats.
Absolutely. The first one is the, correct me if I'm wrong, Hanabi Blaster.
Yeah, Hanabi Blaster.
By Dash. I don't know if it's viable, but it's a cool looking gun. People said it would, come into the meta, and that's pretty awesome. I think it was limited one per person, right?
Yeah, so each person could buy one of these playmats.
And there was only 50 of each, so it's $10,000 from the playmats alone, right?
And then one more.
The other one, the very iconic, I mean, I had to have one, Arcanite Skullcap, right? It's not in meta right now, but I do believe this is significant. This is essentially one of the, quote, Power 9 of Flesh and Blood until Crown of Providence came out.
Part of Flesh and Blood's history.
Yep.
And
maybe future, who knows,
yeah,
right?
So they sold 100 total of these playmats, 50 of each, to generate another $10,000 for the relief fund.
Yep.
As well as they did an auction for a Enlightened Strike playmat. We've featured one of these on the channel before.
Well, yeah, James, the Dubs came through and gifted it to our channel.
Yeah,
right?
I think it was like one of the original Judge playmats or something along those lines.
Very limited. I just remember it's very limited.
I think less than 50.
Yeah. Some say 30, as little as 30 in the world.
In circulation. So they took one of these and auctioned it off. Very generous contribution by MinMax Games through Tall Timmy. $6,000 for the Hawke's Bay Disaster Fund.
Oh, wow. Shout out to MinMax. I see them all over the place. And, we've given a lot of support, or I've given a lot of support to Magnolia in the past, and we featured Magnolia in the past, but it'd be great just to get to know MinMax a little closer. And we're actually supporting MinMax on the upcoming product release, right?
Yes.
So,
More info on that later.
Yep.
But basically, I think it's a really good thing that LSS seems to always have charity or causes that are close to its periphery.
Yep.
Always in mind. Whenever, they've done stuff in the past, like the St. Jude's auction.
More on that later. We have a little throwback to that in a different episode. And I won, I believe, 2 or 3 of those items. Yeah.
So just great. I think the studio has had a history of giving back, especially when there's times of need. And so I think it's a great look for the company moving forward.
For sure. And I mean, even before that, there was I think 2 card merchant charity drives to fight cancer.
Oh, yeah.
Which,
definitely.
yes, I was involved in that. I flew to Florida to be a commentator for it.
Yeah.
Yep. And I also ended up with the prize. So I ended up making that purchase. And even when I repurchased on the secondary market the prize, the seller had contributed a significant portion back in addition to that cancer charity. And even that raised about $55,000 US dollars, I believe. So they're always involved, and it's great for us to contribute as well and do our part.
Yeah, so that's all the Flesh and Blood related news that I have. It was quite a lot of stuff that's happened in the last couple months. What is the next thing?
I would always also have to add to the Auckland component that there was a pretty well received interview from Flukenbox. John, aka Fluke, had sat down with creator J-Dubs, James White of Legend Story Studios. And I think the key takeaway is slightly disappointing. It seems that we should not hold out hope for player versus environment, our PvE format, in 2023. I mean, no guarantees, but it seemed, based on what James was signaling, that they wanted to engage new players and engage the learn to play starter type of environment first and create a very solid starter product, have a second year of organized play before fully exploring player versus environment. And it also might be the case that it's simply not ready as of yet.
Yeah,
right?
I think one thing to keep in mind for everybody who's watching this channel is that the company size, because I know a couple of people who work in Legend Story Studios.
Yep.
The company size itself is still rather small to be undertaking a lot of projects. And I think probably at the beginning of, or not the beginning, towards last year, maybe they had some ambitious deadlines that they wanted to try to meet. But I think the whole ordeal with the history pack translations makes it like more clear to them that it's more important to get these projects done the right way rather than doing them fast.
I would be in agreement with that. Again, personally, a little disappointing to hear that it might not come out in 2023. We were saying we were looking forward for 23 to be the year of PvE.
Yeah.
It kind of rhymes, but it's also just the company being responsible, doing the right thing. I think James has said, and he quoted, I forgot the Japanese gentleman's last name, but he quoted the founder of Nintendo, the creator of Mario Brothers and Legend of Zelda, something about if you release a bad game too early, it's always going to be bad.
Oh, yeah.
If you wait until it's good, then it won't be bad. So basically be patient, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed and hope. And also, word on the street is that to keep you Prism Simps happy, that there will be the revisiting of a light illusionist very soon. Right, so that'll keep us distracted. No?
Yeah. Looking forward to the revisiting of Shadow Runeblade and Light Illusionist.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. So that's what I have.
So yeah, moving on. We just wanted to do a quick recap of the other TCGs. I would say that if you've paid attention to box prices or pack prices of Pokemon is just well received. It's being purchased all over the place. I've dabbled recently because the little fabled princess, my daughter, has been going into Pokemon, and it gets expensive really quick. We have another addict in the making.
Yeah, probably less interested in people hacking and slashing.
Yeah.
And more interested in the Pokemons.
Yes, absolutely. And we will be making some content coming up because, the Taco King had given a little, some goodies to my little princess, and I promised we would make some content on our channel about that. So Pokemon's relatively healthy. In the world of Weiss, we will be coming up with a little bit of Weiss Schwarz content that we've already filmed and have yet to release. But just personally, it feels like I got into Weiss at a pretty good time between the months of September 22 and November of 2022. And a lot of the Weiss Schwarz product that was released dropped to literally 50 to 70% of wholesale pricing because there was just some unhappiness and general market apathy and general market decline. The macro environment wasn't looking good. And I'd say that ever since January of this year, these past 30 to 60 days, Weiss Schwarz has really been recovering strong. It hasn't made it all the way back to even yet if you had purchased at wholesale or purchased at, significantly under retail. But it is definitely recovered from the 50 to 70% range to 80, 85%. And it seems to be trending in the right direction. I would say that right now is not a bad time just to dip into the IPs that you're looking forward to. I believe that's a Chainsaw Man shirt. Is that correct?
Yeah, are they doing a Chainsaw Man
I think they're releasing a Chainsaw Man set in Q1. I personally like, DXD. I personally like Fujimi Fantasia Bunko, aka Da Bunko Babes, which is going to be seen in some of the different TCG content creators. And we might feature that as well. And, you all know one publisher I really am always dying to talk about, and they just can't keep themselves out of the news. I mean, I wanted to talk about Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro in January, but unfortunately, Yuanji was sick and our travel schedules didn't permit. But, we talked about the Magic 30 dumpster fire. We talked about the Hasbro investor call for the Chief Executive Officer, Christopher Bag of Cox. and the president of WotC proper, Cynthia Williams, the land whale, to come out and introduce Magic the Gathering and tell everybody everything's okay. And Mrs. Williams, the way she assured investors that everything was okay was by reading the Wikipedia article defining what Magic the Gathering was. And that did not turn out well. That was a PR nightmare. So after that PR nightmare, they fiddled with the open gaming license, OGL, of Dungeons and Dragons, basically betraying the content creator world that has built billions of dollars over the past 20 years for Dungeons and Dragons by creating their own Dungeons and Dragons fan-made universe and saying, hey, we're going to start extorting you. We're blackmailing you, essentially. Sign this new OGL 1.1 license or else. And when you sign the OGL 1.1 license, if you make over $750,000 a year, you're going to pay us a royalty of 25% for every single dollar higher than that. And the way that was the royalty didn't even take into account their expenses. So if you made $750,000 revenue, top line revenue, every dollar that you made, even if you made less than 25 cents on the dollar for each dollar because of expenses, because of marketing, because of overhead, because of employees, they didn't care. You would have to pay them 25 cents on the dollar.
Well, they backtracked a little bit on that one.
Well, they did. I'm saying that was what they said. Then they lied and said, oh, just kidding, guys. It was a draft. And then Dungeons and Dragons Beyond, DDB, basically the players just said, hey, let's just cancel everything and let's just cancel our subscriptions. And they lost millions of dollars of monthly revenue in subscription revenue. And then they finally backed off and said, just kidding. You know what? Today, what's important is that the players won. But WotC, we won as well. And it's like, no, you didn't. You got your teeth kicked in and your shit pushed in. So fuck off, WotC. That's what really happened. But above and beyond that, there's been more stuff. I mean, I'll tag you in. Yuanji, I don't know if you've been following. Have you heard of the other recent developments ever since that? Because that only got us to about February 1st, February 5th, right?
Yeah.
After they fully backed off.
So I know that we're talking about dumpster fires, but there's some dumpster diving.
Well, yes, there was the dumpstered product, right?
And I believe, I don't know, do you know like the content? So I know that there was pallets, I think of like something like Modern Horizons 2.
Well, in a well-known dump now, just a couple miles west of the heart of Dallas, so it's in Texas, west of Dallas, they had multiple videos now, multiple pictures of, and evidence showing primarily Modern Horizons 2, Unfinity, Secret Layers, and even the ever elusive, the sale has concluded, Magic 30th Anniversary. And this just harkens back to Mrs. Cynthia Williams saying, there is no evidence of overprinting at Wizards of the Coast. Yeah, so why are they needing to, dumpster and destroy and throw good product into landfill if there is no overprinting going on?
Yeah, I think the topic has been covered by quite a few content creators in the space.
Absolutely, it has. Yep.
But you had sent me to read before we started filming. There's a memo.
There is a memo that is new for today. I wanted to talk about one other topic that has also come up in the past 72 hours. It was the leak of Lord of the Rings. And within that leak of Lord of the Rings, they've got the card for Gollum, which I think people are saying is overpowered. They've got the card for Frodo, which seems to be also overpowered. And there's also a weird gender identity spin on it. People saying that Frodo shouldn't be called it because he's a he in the lore. And speaking of a betrayal of lore, the third creative decision of Wizards of the Coast was to present Aragorn in blackface. And that runs 100% contradictory to the lore of J.R.R. Tolkien, because Aragorn was described as having, I think, silver eyes, very pale complexion, long black flowing hair, and that isn't how he's portrayed.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I think that depending on like how you read into it, maybe somebody's like, oh well, Saint is being racist, or he's like against I don't know, representation. And so I think it's important to make a distinction between like, I think real representation versus tokenism.
Yep.
So I think
just forced insertion. Because, guys, I am not white, I am not black, I don't have a dog in the fight.
Yeah.
And even when historically Asian people are played by white people, like for example, Major Kusanagi in Ghost in the Shell, played by Scarlett Johansson, I'm not one of those offended people. Traditionally, the only people on Twitter, I'd say when that happened, 85% plus people that were offended were Caucasian. And actually, I mean, I found Scarlett Johansson a pretty good fit. She looked good on the screen for Major Kusanagi.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like a good way to go about things. So, for example, a lot of people I think have pretty favorable reactions. There's a recent Spider-Man movie, like Miles Morales.
Yeah,
where
Into the Spider-Verse was a great movie, and they introduced it, and Miles Morales is part of Spider-Man canon.
Yeah,
right?
I think there is something to be said about actually going back and maybe like having a different universe or changing the story in a way that it makes sense when a character has their like cultural background changed.
Yeah.
And coming up and doing like a service to them.
Yeah.
Or having representation in the form of characters that like Black Panther, where they actually it makes sense.
Yeah, make a movie about Black Panther, make a movie about Shang-Chi, you know, and they did that, and those movies were successful. But now with multiple large multinational publicly traded companies doing this forced inclusion and this tokenism, as Yuanji mentioned, it's really disingenuous, and it's kind of like they're just looking for that, you know, they're virtue signaling, and they're looking for a pat on the back from the public, like, oh, look at that, you black-faced Aragorn, that's so brave, that's such a move in the right direction.
Yeah.
And I simply can't, you know, I wasn't going to buy it anyway, but now I'm avidly saying, please, everybody, don't buy it. This company is rotten to the core. They don't actually care about diversity, equity, or inclusion. They care about pillaging your wallets and then coming up with a different look and then reprinting all of this, whatever this Lord of the Rings set comes out that's, you know, successful and builds secondary market value, they're going to reprint it some more. And that's all they're about. And if they reprint too much, they're going to throw that product into the dumpster and just cover it up and lie to the public. That said, I do think we do have a relatively recent leak that we'd like to share.
Yeah.
Right?
So I don't know if we're going to post the message in entirety, but just to give kind of like a
let's read some of it, because I don't want to give away the name, right?
Yeah.
But we do have a printed out email here that was leaked just 2:50 p.m.
Yeah, so just a couple hours before.
Yeah, just a couple hours ago, today on the 1st of March. Technically, we're covering the last 60 days, but we're filming literally first thing, and it is still the afternoon of March 1st, and this is hot off the press. So, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so this is from a large seller of Magic the Gathering sealed products.
Yep.
With some close ties to one of the major distributors for the game in the US.
Some would say a wing of one of the major top 2 distributors in the US. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I think we all know who it is. And there's a newsletter, so this is going out to quite a few people.
Yeah, so this is basically just talking, I think, their take on the current market conditions.
Mm-hmm.
If you are trying to buy into like March of the Machines, this is like addressed to these people. So it says, previously Wizards Amazon have been using the very low to very high to market 30 approach.
Yep.
Which basically just means that they come in initially at a very low price.
Marketed as low. Yep.
And then what they do after that is they prop up the prices, so they don't let other people come in.
Yep.
They prop up the prices until 30 days before the product is set to release.
30 days to market, hence market 30.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then at that point, then you have basically everybody is free to enter the market, and you see the prices just drop significantly. And this is something that we had noted about a lot of the Magic releases, where basically like before the set comes out, you just have everybody trying to fire sale at close to distributor prices.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as price dropped to market by release, the very high period was a placebo to help retailers and players have more confidence in pre-ordering. So this is not like a real kind of thing.
Yeah, placebo. They're tricking people into thinking that the product was more valuable than it was and more scarce than it was.
Yeah.
Hence their need to, throw stuff away in the dumpster.
Yeah, there are many pros and cons to this approach depending on where you were in the food chain, but mostly this model was received negatively by distributors and resellers, and their order with WotC dropped accordingly. A lot of the complaints were that it was like very difficult, I think, to make money as a LGS because you're buying a lot of Magic releases, and I would say that probably the vast majority, like 80 to 90% of the set releases, you would lose money after factoring in the time that you would spend,
of course,
plus the capital expenditure.
Yeah, and then there's the Amazon factor, which I think they mentioned at the last sentence.
Yeah, why buy through any hobby supply chain when you can just wait for the Wizards Amazon pre-order price guarantee to kick in?
Yeah, exactly. That's market manipulation by the publisher. They're not really printing to demand. They're trying to generate fake demand, and they're treating their customer base like sheep, and they're exploiting the local game store ecosystem worldwide.
Yeah, and so I think the important takeaway from this is that the actual end price is kind of the initial kind of like really low price that Wizards Amazon initially comes to market with.
Yep.
So a new model in Phyrexia, so they basically skip the first phase of this, where they just start high and then go to market 10.
Exactly. So
meaning that instead of kind of like broadcasting to the entire environment, like, okay, wink, wink, this is like the actual price. They're skipping that, so they're hiding some of the information.
Absolutely. Yeah. So here, I'll take the second part. Here, they say high to 10 days before market. Actually, have it go towards market. Here, I'll read it. No very low opening, very low price. Rather, straight to very high, then only drop to market around 10 days before release. So there's no pre-order period of very low price. That was and still is significant up and down the supply chain, and worked in the sense of increasing distribution pre-orders / confidence. The complete bundle followed the same model. However, after spoilers, sold out at $80, and markets have been $125 plus ever since. However, we interpret all of the above as Nash gamesmanship, aka Nash equilibrium's game theory, basically. The general supply equation never changed, and demand is what it is per set. This should mean that we will shortly see Phyrexia prices head south like its recent predecessors, subject to true supply demand like always. And it goes on and gives other proof in other instances. But right now, that is what they're doing. They're marketing very high, because think about Commander Ripoff being marketed at over $400.
Yeah, for set boosters.
Yes, for set boosters. They're manipulating the market, and they're lying to the public. Meanwhile, the true price might be like $280 or $300, but they lied to you for you to build up that expectation and let you think that $300, oh wow, I'm getting, Commander Masters for 25% off. Meanwhile, they could have just been forthright and honest and marketed at $280 or $300, but they're not doing that. Same thing with Lord of the Rings. They're saying, Lord of the Rings, it's going to be a specialty product. It's going to be over $400. And I would say that all of this market manipulation has been proven. The distributors know it. The local game stores know it. The players that are thinking critically and paying attention, they know it. But the real critical thinkers have already moved on. They've moved to better games. Games like the first publisher, Legend Story Studios, Flesh+Blood, where they're offering $85 to $90 boxes and not lying to you, manipulating, and telling you that they're not overprinting, yet overprinting, then, throwing their product in the dumpster.
Yeah, I think my main takeaway from this is the fact that the Wizards, Amazon kind of pricing strategy, they describe it as being Nash gamesmanship. But usually when you're talking about doing any kind of like Nash equilibria or whatever, it's treating all of the players kind of in the game as competitors.
Yep.
And so it's really telling if your game publisher or like your main distribution for the game is treating its stores that are also selling the game or its customers as competitors in the sense.
I would say even sheep, as inferior to them, right? They're telling you to feel their respect, yet this is how little they actually respect their customers.
Yeah, well, when I say competition, I mean that they're kind
of they have different adversarial interests, competing interests.
Yeah, like they want you to spend more money than you should for the product. They want you to kind of like bleed out like value compared to what it is, rather than treating it just as like a service. Like they're making a game, it's for the players to enjoy and play, or it's for the business partners of the game company to try to make an earning, like selling these. Instead, you're treating your business partners as adversaries.
Yep.
I think in general that's kind of my takeaway.
That's not a great long-term mindset for any business, publicly traded or not, to maintain. And it's unscalable and it's unsustainable. And those are the practices that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast has been espousing especially these past 3 to 4 years. This is not new. This has been escalating, and this is the reason why I personally put my foot down after Double Masters, and instead of, starting a YouTube channel for MTG, here we are promoting Flesh+Blood. So, right now, you will see other videos of us talking about the parallels, but right now it feels like the second renaissance of TCGs is happening in Flesh+Blood. This is that period of, call it 93 to 96, 93 to 98. That was the best period of time in the history of Magic the Gathering, and you can't rely on leadership such as Bag of Cox or Cynthia Landwell Williams to handle this, because they're disingenuous. They're bad people. Chris Bag of Cox is not a good leader. He's a liar. Cynthia Williams is a liar. Her job at Philip Morris was literally to package cigarettes and market it in a way where children would buy cigarettes and be hooked for life, because they said in the boardroom, they're like, oh, well, our customers are dying. What do? We need new customers. And Cynthia Williams was like, oh, well, let's encourage, let's brand our product and lure in children and minors so that they can be the new people to ingest cigarettes and die. All right? Or at least consume the product for a lifetime and then die. That is the baseline of this human being. So I don't need to say anything nice about this individual. She does not belong in an environment that's targeting people's nostalgia and a gaming friendly community that celebrates art, that celebrates people coming together. She makes money off of exploiting people, and she should not be involved with Hasbro or Wizards of the Coast. Because somebody that sells cancer sticks to children, why do you want that person in charge of a company that distributes toys to children and games to children, young adults, and just straight up old boomers like myself? All right. So hope this was helpful. Hope that if you're still listening to us, 40 plus minutes in, that you enjoyed our takes on the various TCGs. Anything else, Yuanji?
Pretty excited to see what happens in the next coming months, at least in the flesh and blood world.
In the flesh and blood world, well, if you waited this long, I guess we have to spoil it. Yes, there is a box that's coming out the next episode. It's got Mr. J-Dubs' name on there, as well as Legend Story Studios. So please tune in to our upcoming episode, because we thank Legend Story Studios for providing us with a box opening for spoiler season. Keep it coming, guys, and you're doing an awesome job, Alex, in marketing. Appreciate you guys. Hey, if you're a viewer and you're still here this late, remember to like, comment, subscribe, twiddle that notification button. Please support this guy and his team, Team Runaways, on Patreon via The Long Game, and we'll see you next time.
Catch you guys later.
Bye. Rudy, can you ask the magical engineer the question again?
What would it take for you to sell every old Magic card you own? And how would you feel if that, could you sell your whole collection from your life? How would you feel?
I've done that in the past, so I've experienced it and I regretted it every time. And now the cards are so expensive that I don't think, even if I had the ability to buy them back, I don't feel like it would be a responsible choice, because it would be just so much money. So
Even if somebody paid you 150 cents on the dollar, no matter what the price is, wouldn't you feel like the party was
I don't
gone?
know. I would literally feel like something is lost and I'm never going to retain it again. Because it's even if I've got the money to unless I got a lot more money and I went right back out to buy them, but even then I wouldn't
you
have...
have to stay out. That's it for life.
Yeah, then if you put that restriction on it too, then I don't know, I really struggle with it.
What about you, Dan?
Oh, me? A price tag?
If somebody offered you unlimited amounts, take every Magic card, vintage item.
So Magic is out of your life.
Remove it from your life.
Do I lose my sheets?
You what?
Do I lose my sheets?
No, that's artwork. That's artwork.
Okay, so I guess
Sealed boxes or cards?
All right.
All of that.
So sealed boxes or cards, and I get to name my price?
If you got 150, 200 cents on the dollar, but I'm just saying, how would you feel the rest of your life without that?
I'd miss it.
Say?
Would I be able to borrow Edwin's cards?
No, because he sold out too and he's crying in the corner.
Okay, can I borrow Saints cards?
No, he's back in New York and laughing at people living in Florida.
I would feel terrible, but I'd have money.
Okay, I'll give you an
I don't
answer
know.
here.
Yeah, but what do you do with the money if you lose something?
Yeah,
you
I
like?
don't think I would.
If my
I'd
family...
have to lose all of it. That's the hard part.
If my family was in the spot where they needed it, I would definitely do it. And I would do it without a second thought, but I would definitely regret it and I would miss it.
Well, that shows how much it means then.
Yeah. My family's definitely top notch. I would sell it for them in an instant, but I would still miss it. Deeply.
Okay. I would have said never 3 years ago, but I would take 85 cents on the dollar right now and not lose a minute of sleep because of where things are. Yep.
Really? Wait. That's interesting. So you would have felt differently before Magic 30. Magic 30 changed your opinion that much.
It has. It really has.
Wow. That's...
And I'm not alone. I am not alone.
So if Wizards of the Coast, if you're watching this, I want you to think hard about that. Someone who's lifelong played this game and is passionate about it, turned the corner just from that release.
30 years here. Pro Tour grinder back in the days, in the
That's
mid-90s.
really
So
significant.
That's insane.
No, it's true. It's true. I take 85 cents on the dollar for...
Yeah, I believe you. It's really significant.
Yep.
That kind of loss of faith and passion over that set.
And I'm not the only one.
And you have graded, right?
Yeah,
You have
graded, sealed, everything.
Sealed.
Yeah.
And that's not just a financial choice. That's an emotional decision.
It's a logical, it's a rational decision. It's a loyalty decision. I'm done with that relationship in my life. So, yeah. We won't ask Rudy because we're filming right now. It's unfair. It's unfair.